Hello everyone. Today we start our second session of the Ethics Integrity and the Aptitude paper of the UPSC CSE. What we will do is, for the first 10 minutes, I'll give you a brief overview of what we did yesterday. Kind of a summary, but there is no point skipping this summary mentally for the simple reason I am going to take some of these topics way ahead. So I'll draw some new connections. I'll draw some new conclusions so that our understanding moves up to the next level of advancement, sophistication. All right. Now, if you recollect, I started with a simple sentence, and that sentence was our working definition of meta-ethics. Much later, we will derive the real technical definition of meta-ethics. So what I had said is, meta-ethics is a bird's eye view of the entire project of ethics. At this stage, you call it ethics, you call it morality, it does not make much of a difference. Because it's much later we're going to derive what is morality and what is ethics and what are the differences. Much before that, there is no point differentiating between ethics and morality. Okay, even if many of you are in advanced stages of your preparation for the CSE, I would still strongly recommend kind of forget what you've learned so far. Look at the whole thing afresh, okay? And then you can, in your own minds, compare what did you understand of some of these concepts. Were you misunderstanding? Were you leaving out critical pieces of information? Okay, let's start. So the first thing I told you, it is about a bird's eye view of the entire project of ethics. Part number one. And then it is followed by a deep dive into the entire project of ethics. That means we're doing two things. One, we are exploring the big picture. And the second thing we are doing is we're going to get into details. As I told you, meta-ethics has 4 components, okay? And these are like 4 hats or 4 roles that a meta-ethicist has to play. So first is, let me start with that small satellite. This is for the bird's eye view, like a satellite looks down upon Earth and sees only major topographical features, continents, oceans, major rivers, etc. Okay. Now, we're just going to use this as a symbol in our memory, as a picture in our memory to remember, looking at the big picture of the entire project of ethics. Okay, now can you imagine this as can you imagine the satellite printed on a hat? I'm trying to draw some very powerful connections here. That means you got to play the role of an explorer. You explore the entire project of ethics. Okay, so I told you this is the first hat. I'm not drawing the second hat, but the second role that we were playing was that of an epistemologist. Okay, so I'm just going to write epi. Okay, you write epistemologist. What's an epistemologist? An epistemologist wears the hat of an academic researcher. Now straight away you find this is new that we did not discuss it yesterday. Academic researcher and historian. That is the role played by epistemologist. Epistemology is the philosophical study of knowledge. Knowledge is what you know. Study of what you know. How do you know? Therefore, there are four things here as I explained in my last session. What is the origin? What is the status? What is the scope of our knowledge? What is the limitations of our knowledge? Okay. Now, the third role that you will play is that of an linguistics expert. Linguistics. Out of the 5 elements I mentioned yesterday, 2 of them play a very important part. One is semantics and the second is pragmatism. Semantics is meaning of elements of a language. Whether it is verbal, whether it is written, whether it is body language, whether it is gestures, microfacial expressions, like somebody might clench his or her jaw, somebody's body language suddenly becomes a little stiff, somebody gets a little startled. These are all we can broadly consider under language. So you want to know the meaning of different elements of a language. Okay, and that too like a native speaker. Because native speakers could use expressions like, oh my God. Okay. Now the next one was pragmatism. Pragmatism basically means the same elements of language have a different meaning in different contexts. Okay. So you might say, oh my God, and is, oh God, oh my God. So that means the same 3 words, oh my God, can have very different meanings in different contexts. So you need to understand that. The fourth role is that of a psychologist. I don't want to get too much into it before we make sufficient progress. Broadly, emotions. What I covered little yesterday. Emotions, feelings, behavior, actions, thoughts, beliefs, what you believe, desires, preferences, okay, attitudes, your drives, your motivations, broadly covered under psychology. So you need to play 4 roles. So what I coined, now this is something that I coined. If you want to be a bureaucrat, even pass this examination. You want to be a successful bureaucrat. You need to be something like meta-ethicist bureaucrat. That means when anything is coming to you, it could be some new information, it could be some new file, new project, some new instruction from your head office, from your ministry, from your division. You need to understand like a metaphysicist. The first hat is that of metaphysicist. Okay, let's write it down. This is something we talked yesterday. Why say a bureaucrat should be a meta-ethicist? Because every bureaucrat should be able to play these four roles. One is understand what is coming to you. Is it real? Does something like this actually exist? What is its being? Okay, I explained yesterday what's real or reality. Existence, does it exist? And its being. I deliberately have not dragged you into a conversation about reality, existence, and being in technical terms. We don't want to rush into technicals at this point of time when your understanding is limited. Otherwise, it's going to create a communication gap between you and me. You'll not be able to understand what I speak, okay? And even vice versa could happen. Okay. Being, I said, whenever you come across this word, always write two things. To be something and not to be something. Yesterday when I gave you an analogy of meta game, we discovered a game is something. To be means is. What is? Something factual, something real. For example, we said game is a temporary, negotiated, that means there are rules of the game. It's a temporary, negotiated, alternate reality within a reality. Then we discussed couple of characteristics. It should be voluntary. The truth and values within that bounded space of time and space, within that boundary of time and space, there are truths and values that pertain to that game. Outside the boundary, those truths, values, goals, and consequences do not apply. Okay? So, if you look at that example carefully, you should be able to figure out what is not a game. If it is not voluntary, If you're forcing somebody into a game, it doesn't remain a game. If you hide the truth, the rules of the game, if you hide the rules of a game from a participant of the game, it doesn't remain a game. It is a game only when people who are participating in that game know clearly about the rules, the laws of how the game is going to be played. Otherwise, you're simply manipulating those people and manipulating the results. So that is two examples of what a game is not. I gave you a very critical word here, essence. Essence of a game. What is essence of a knife? Let's look at it. Let's imagine this to be what is the essence of a knife? Essence of a knife is its sharpness. You take away sharpness away from the knife, it does not remain a knife. Okay. So I'm going to rub this off. So these are four. Now why did I call it meta-ethicist bureaucrat? Why did I call it? Because any project, any instruction, anything coming to you, you must understand what is real. Does it exist? What is its being? What is it? What it is not? Okay? Second, you should be able to know about it. Deep knowledge, like an academic researcher, like an academician and researcher. You should be able to know pretty deep about it. Historian, where is it coming from? What has led to this? So I'm going to give you an example of something there a little further on metaphysics. Okay, this is how do you know what you know? Okay, how does the other person know what he knows? Then we come to linguistics. People will use semantics in different ways to play with you. Sometimes they will use language to OBS, okay, OBSCURE and OBFUSCATE. People will often use language to obscure the real meaning. That means, obscure means to hide. It literally means to dim or to make dark. They'll hide the real meaning. Meaning of elements of a language is semantics. They'll use obscuring to dim or dark the real meaning. Sometimes, now this can happen intentionally and unintentionally. Obfuscate is something that you use it intentionally. Obfuscate is to make something more complex so that the other person doesn't understand. Make it seem more complex. Because if it seems complex, it will seem confusing. If it is confusing, the person will not have clarity. If you want to clear the CSE exam, you cannot let anything obscure or obfuscate your understanding of the true meaning, the truth, the knowledge, the search for it. Okay? And you should be able to not only understand about yourself, but also about others. Your own emotions, what do they get triggered by? Your own feelings, that is, how your emotions are outwardly manifested. How do your emotions reveal themselves? It is also dependent on, as I told you, attitudes, your own attitudes, others' attitudes. Your own drives, what motivates you, what motivates other people. Your own emotional evaluation of something and other people's emotional evaluation of something. Okay, that is why you need to play all those four roles. Okay, once we're here, now let's see. Then I went to nuances. I want to tell you something here because we want to take metaphysics to the next level of our understanding. I'm just going to draw something. There is no real diagram here, but it will help you remember a lot of stuff. Can you imagine this just as an axis, x-axis, y-axis जैसे हम करते थे? This axis is going to be like this. Just let's call it time. Metaphysicists, they're really concerned with one thing, couple of things, out of which one thing is time. Is time a flowing dimension? Is it a continuous flowing dimension? Is time real? Okay, so one is, I mentioned about flowing dimension. Don't write FD, it has no meaning, just trying to write it in short. Is time real? Does it exist? Is time objective or is time subjective? This discussion we'll have today. After we have this, you'll start understanding what is objectivity, subjectivity. Okay? This is about time. Can you just imagine that there is a brick, which is a loose brick, and there is a man who's passing by, okay, who's just walking by, and this brick falls on this person's head. Okay, so it falls on this person's head. This person gets either really injured or he or she dies. This is the second dimension that metaphysicists are concerned about. What causes something? So this is also called causality. So let me write it down for you. CAUSALITY. It is important to know the source, it's important to know the origin. What causes one thing? What causes another thing? In this case, you might say, what caused this was this brick falling on his head. What caused the brick to fall? The brick was loose. Why was the brick loose? What was the cause of the brick being loose? If we investigate, we may come across, okay, hypothetically, just imagine this. The brick came loose because the mason, the mistri, who was putting the brick was suddenly bit by a bee. He was bit by a bee, so for about 5 minutes he was kind of disoriented. So the bricks that he laid were not as firmly into that rest of the body of the wall as it should have been. So what caused the cause becomes the bee. What caused the bee to bite this fellow? Bees are all around us. But why would bee bite a mason sitting on second floor putting some bricks on a wall? Because if you investigate, you might find a little boy threw a stone at the beehive. So the cause now goes to the little boy. Why did the little boy throw a stone? The little boy threw a stone because he's coming back from his school. Something made him annoyed and frustrated. He just wanted to vent his anger. Now the cause shifts to the school. What made him annoyed at the school? I think now you've understood why metaphysicists bother about this. Ultimately want to go to source and origin. In one sense, when we talk of entire project of ethics, if you look at your course, you'll find there are 20, let's say 20, 25 Western philosophers, Eastern philosophers, then there is a separate list of Indian philosophers, etc. Why do we want to get back to that? In a loose way, you could connect it to causality. Okay? That is in your mind right now, you can link these two things. I'll get more and more accurate in advanced stages. Okay? That is the reason why we would study Confucius, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Thiruvalluvar, Thomas Hobbes, René Descartes, John Locke, David Hume, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. That is the reason why we would study Immanuel Kant, Friedrich Hegels. That's the reason why we study Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mills, Karl Marx, Friedrich Nietzsche, Max Weber, Jean-Paul Sartre, John Rawls, Bernard Williams, etc. Just the list of Western philosophers. We want to actually get to source and origin like a metaphysicist. We don't only want to learn what is the current contemporary view of ethics. We want to know what's the source and origin. Okay, so you understood 1, 2. Third is, they want to know what is an pretty old debate since Plato and even before him. What is the connection? Is your mind and your body, are these two different substances? substances, mind and body dualism. We'll know more about it when we study Plato. Or is it one substance? This approach, this doctrine, this philosophy is called materialism. Okay. What else? Another thing they want to know is, when you say something is the same person or something is the same object, any object or person, when do you say something is same? That means something remains same over a period of time. What do you mean by something remaining same? What can change and still it remains the same? What changes will still allow that thing to be same? And what changes will fundamentally change that person or object forever? A hint, a sense. Okay? So let it remain in your mind at this stage. So you've understood what metaphysicists would do. They'll do this, they'll do this, they'll do mind, body, etc. Okay? Fair. Okay. Yesterday, I was talking about nuances. I put down 20 shades of red, bright and vivid. To opposite of this is very earthy and muted red. We discovered there were 20. How do we define nuance? Yesterday I did not. Nuance is a subtle difference in. Subtle. Subtle means something which is almost imperceptible. You almost would miss it until you have a highly trained eye. That means until you are highly skilled and backed by a great deal of aptitude. So aptitude, I shouldn't say great deal of aptitude, I should simply say high aptitude. High aptitude combined with skills, practice. If you do not have that, you're likely to miss out that subtle difference in something, or it is also called a shade. That is why I told you those 20 colors, we'll call it a shade card of red. I drew something like this and I said just imagine to be a shade card, like an Asian Paints shade card, Narrow-Lac Paint shade card. They're almost the same. Okay? Because these colors are now a worldwide convention. They might introduce something else not available in India. But if you go to Italy, you go to South Africa, you go to Australia, you will have more or less the same shade card. Okay? Why some colors would not be present in India is because when the marketeers did their research, they must have found out empirically empirically. That means when they would have conducted the study, they would have found out there are very less takers for this shade of red. And then later on, one company introduces that, and you might say, sir, there is a difference between shade cards. This company is not. The shade cards are universally defined. Okay. We talked about Christianity. Then we'll come here. This discussion will still carry on over a couple of sessions. Emotions. We specifically referenced the model, the classical model of emotions given by Dr. Paul Ekman. There are other views that I mentioned, but right now, since we are building our fundamentals, we'll stick to Dr. Paul Ekman's Atlas of Emotions. So I told you he gave 6 plus 1, 7 as universal biological root emotions. Quickly, we'll take that discussion forward. I asked you to imagine like a carrot or a radish. One emotion is very small because I told you this is not in terms of size but time. The time it lasts. So rest, every emotion is going to last much longer than this. This is the briefest emotion and then it gets resolved into one of this. So which ones were these? Anger, fear, disgust, sadness, happiness, surprise. Okay. And then I drew a lot of feelings for each one of them. Which kept on increasing in nature. For example, fear. The lowest one I said was trepidation, apprehension. Something is about to happen. Kuch hone wala hai, which leaves you a little uneasy. And the highest level of a feeling for under the fear family is horror and panic. Okay. Why do I want to discuss this today? Because I want to take this a little forward. This we said were universal biological root emotions. The above was the experience zone. The emotions is not what you experience, according to Dr. Paul Ekman. What you experience, that means consciously identify, consciously recognize, are feelings. They're not emotions. Emotions are root emotions. Universal biological root emotions, you could also call it, as I explained yesterday, universal biological affect program. Affect is emotions. Okay. And then there was another one which I gave was contempt. Okay. Contempt. This along with this is a root emotion, but it's not biological. Okay. Then I talked about shame, embarrassment, guilt, and envy. So I'm not going to repeat that part. I just want to focus on these. Universal biological root emotions. Over a period of as evolution happened, over tens of thousands of years, 1,000,000 years and more, from the primitive stage to today, mankind had to survive. It's not only mankind, also animals and birds and insects and everybody had to survive. We're right now talking of human beings. They had to survive. That was their biggest concern. Therefore, these got developed. Biological means these are genetic. These are in human DNA, universal, because all humans everywhere have these root emotions. Okay, and biological because it is genetic, you can't take it out, it's automatic. Details you can find it yesterday's video or yesterday's session. Now we have evolutionary. I like to call it EUSA. Why? Kind of triggers my memory. What it basically means is universal evolutionary survival archetypes. The spelling is archetypes. Okay, ARCHETYPES. This means this word, otherwise pronounced as archetypes. Archetypes. Okay, this word means the original pattern. Survival, the original patterns of survival. The original design for survival. Let's figure out what it was. So, I would like put it under a box. What if somebody attacked you with a sword? If somebody attacked you with a sword, these diagrams, whatever I am actually drawing, is more to help you with just visualizing things and acting as a memory trigger. Mnemonics. First is threat. One second. We'll put it down. Okay. One is threat. And we'll be able to relate it to all of this. I again wrote it wrong. First is a threat. So this arm with a sword coming at you signifies threat of any form. Threat of your physical well-being. In old days, so it was evolutionary biological, threat of any kind. So it could be, today what it could mean, threat to your physical well-being, threat to your mental well-being, threat to your economic well-being, threat to your social status, threat to an opportunity, threat to a relationship, It's basically something that threatens you. Okay, it's no longer only a physical threat. Then, okay, just for you to easily remember, let's think that's a grave. Again, it's a mnemonic. It signifies loss. Loss of somebody who's close to you, loss of status, loss of opportunity. This was a threat. This is a loss. It has happened. This was threat. Likely to happen. Loss, it's happened. Loss of relationship. Loss of a dear one. Loss of relationship. Loss of your social status or position. Loss of your human dignity. You've lost something that was precious to you. Threat, loss. The third one is, supposing you are walking and you come across, let's say, a huge area which is fenced off, barbed wire, कांटे की तार. You're obstructed. You wanted to go somewhere. You wanted to achieve something. Don't take it literally only. Take it figuratively. You wanted to get something. Something is preventing that. It's obstructing you. Could be a target, could be something aspirational, reward, award, wherever you feel you're obstructed. Okay, so let's write obstruction. It signifies obstruction of any kind, threat of any kind, loss of any kind. Then comes contamination. Contamination, poison, so that you don't ingest, you don't eat anything which is poisonous, something that is toxic. That is why this root emotion, disgust, evolved, as I spoke yesterday. So I'm just going to put, let's say, something like a poison mushroom type. Just any image. You could put a pond of water, some stagnant water, contaminated. It's been standing for a long time now. It is poisonous, toxic, it is stinking. You're disgusted by it. And the fifth one is, I'm just going to draw a cloud. I'm going to write a pond. This is a cloud. Suddenly there is lightning. Basically, it signifies any unexpected event. Anything unexpected, anything will surprise you. The root emotion activated will be surprise. Anything unexpected, good, bad, ugly. Surprise. Now look at this. Why are these called universal biological root emotions? Now it should be clear to you. Any kind of threat could trigger fear, as a root emotion, could trigger anger at somebody threatening you with something, somebody bullying you with something, somebody threatening your well-being in any manner, threat to mental peace, harmony in life, threat to your health, wealth, opportunities, job, any kind of threat. It might trigger anger or fear. It could even trigger disgust, sadness. Surprise is reserved here. Any kind of loss, something that you have already lost, could trigger a sense of anger. This has already happened. You could be disgusted. You could become, the root emotion that is triggered could be sadness. Same, you can start attaching each one of them. Obstructing, somebody is obstructing you, you become angry. You get annoyed, then frustrated, then exasperated, then bitter, then argumentative, then bitterness, then vengefulness, then fierceness and fury, as I explained yesterday. That was angers, all of this. Starting from annoyance to a full-fledged fury or rage. Okay? I would suggest look at everything, look at all those. I think I'll gave you almost like 48 to 50 feelings here. Try and relate what could trigger some of those feelings. If you're able to accurately go to the feeling, that's the only way you will discover what the root emotion is, because root emotions are not in the experience zone. They're not even conscious. They are automatic, pre-programmed. So in that sense, till this stage, we behave like pre-programmed robots. Okay, without understanding it. Okay, so we've taken our discussion on universal biological root emotions. So I'm just going to say one thing here. If you simply hear me or you're simply listening but you don't go back and do your homework and you don't revisit, rethink these things on your own, believe me, everything is going to be lost. Okay? Unless you are able to reflect, only then you'll start coming out with some good questions for me. Okay? And when you come out with good questions, that is the time I also gain in classes. Okay. So, we said randomness. Randomness of emotions you will find in one of the meta-ethical theories, which is called universal prescriptivism. That theory denies randomness of emotion. But there are three other theories which say yes, randomness of emotions. Okay? I just wanted to tell you one thing. People tend to not deeply understand this paper. Let's look at something. I'll give you a small example. PHYSICS, physics. What if I was to write aeronautics? Okay, sound, acoustics. In exercise, roughly what is called body weight is calisthenics, civics, politics. You got these? Now look at this. Ethics, thermodynamics, what is the significance of X? I want you to go back, search, and you'll figure out what we're saying is not out of our imagination or not something that we have just invented. There is a whole project of ethics with some amazing applications. Those applications are in the area of medical, engineering, law, corporate ethics, which includes corporate governance, sustainability, etc., stakeholder theories. Then you have application in terms of environmental ethics, international relationships, ethics of international relationships and funding, bureaucracy, ethics of bureaucracy, initially given by a philosopher called Max Weber. Ethics of bureaucracy, which will cover public administration and governance, probity in governance, etc. Okay? Then you'll have application of ethics like care ethics, feminist ethics, etc. These are application areas. Unless you understand the fundamentals of ethics, there is no way you can rush into any application of ethics in any one of these areas. I have seen a rush for students wanting to solve moral dilemmas without recognizing what are the nuances involved. They don't have an understanding of how ethics, which is a branch of philosophy, classifies different theories. They don't want to understand what is moral particularism and how is it different from moral absolutism. They just want to byrote it, mug it up, these different theories. Well, with that approach, good luck to those candidates. Unless, like we did for the game, unless you can pinpoint accurately, I'll say deadly accuracy, highest relevance, bringing out nuances very clearly, understanding, interpreting those nuances correctly, and then responding to that situation. You would not even realize when the examiner is already asking you, which is basically a comparison of, let's say, two meta-ethical theories. You look at the question paper, suddenly you don't even realize he or she, the examiner, the question paper that has been finalized by a professor whether they're asking you to highlight the differences between cultural relativism and, let's say, emotivism, prescriptivism, naturalism, non-naturalism, subjectivism, error theory, objective subjectivism, which is also called subjective objectivism, or mind-dependent objectivism. You would not realize this. That means I need to be very clear. Reality, existence, and being, essence. This is also called, here I told you essence. This is also called ontology. Clearly identified being of something, to be this and not to be that. Okay? If you're not clear, I'll give you a typical example. You'll start from one theory. Let's say these are 20 theories. Just for an example, you start with the basic assumption of this theory, get into this theory, proceed with the logic here, get into this one, proceed with the logic here, and give the conclusion here. This is one of the reasons why candidates score very low in the ethics paper, because they are not crystal clear as to what is the being of the question that is being asked. What is the essence of the question? So when you are responding, and then the second is, people respond in a non-technical way. Naturalism is fundamentally different from non-naturalism. Both of them are fundamentally different from ideal observer theory and divine command theory. All of them are fundamentally different from subjectivism. All of them are fundamentally different from error theory. All of them again are fundamentally different than moral constructivism. Similarly, emotivism, quasi-realism, or expressivism or projectivism, and different from universal prescriptivism. And then there'll be related things like moral particularism, moral absolutism, moral subjectivism, moral generalism, etc. Okay, fair. I'm going to rub this off. Okay, I want to start on this subjectivism versus objectivism. It's going to be a rather long debate on this one. Not debate, a discussion on this one. Okay, so what we'll do is, we start with something called subjectivism, and we want to understand this, and we want to understand what is objectivism. Okay, I'm going to draw brain, eye, and the world. Just imagine this as the brain. This is your I. Let's say this is the external world. 3 elements. Okay? The same thing we'll do for objective. Again, we'll do brain, I, yesterday I was mentioning to you, this is one of the most fundamental concepts in ethics. Almost everywhere you'll find subjectivism, objectivism, the subjective, objective, etc. It's built up on this concept. At times I do not even see instructors having very great clarity on this ontology. I don't see students in advanced phases of their CSE examination preparing for ethics for a long time having any clarity on this. Let's try and build up clarity. Okay? Now, these 3 belong here, these 3 belong here. They look the same. What's the difference? It's just going to pop out. For somebody who is subjectivist, and I'm not going to give you the definition right now, for somebody who is a subjectivist, their brain tells the eye what is to be seen. Their brain, it's not only the brain. I'm just using brain. I will very soon put some certain things here. Okay? A lot of items on the list here. Right now, at a fundamental level, let us understand a subjectivist's brain completely dictates. It commands, it dictates. Let's write it down. It commands your eye what to see. Your eye sees what the brain gives a command. See this, then you see that. If you want to see it as good, if it dictates, see good in something, the eye will see good in something. If it says see bad in something, it will see bad in the same thing. Okay? We'll get into this. It's going to be a long discussion on this. Here, the brain doesn't tell what to see. The eye looks at the world, gets its facts, evidences, some existing logic from the world. The eye looks independently at the world, gets its facts, evidences, and existing logic from the world. So it takes an independent view. independent view. This I doesn't have an independent view. This I has a dependent view. Okay. What is it dependent on? What the brain dictates. What is it independent? Nobody is dictating. It's looking at the world and gathering the facts and evidence from the world. Hence, you will find typically a term in subjectivism, it is also called mind dependent. Please don't write DEP dot. You should write dependent. Okay. Objective is I'll give you a challenge. Go to any candidate preparing or who has already prepared for ethics. Ask them what is mind independent and mind dependent. Let them give you things with clarity. Maybe you can ask yourself. And I taking an independent view of the world, you seeing, I represents you. You seeing the world independently, without any biases. Even if there is a bias, normally we don't know because we call it implicit biases. It's already there. If I'm already wearing sun goggles tinted green, and if it is part of my programming, psychological programming, how will I know I'm seeing world through green lens? Okay. Here, dependent. Okay. What does this I do? Now this information which is coming in, brain. Now your brain uses logic. I just wrote RATLN, rationality. No short form. This is for me. Logic, rationality, reasoning. Okay. So you can call it as cognition. Thinking, reasoning, analyzing, comparing, using logic, rationality. You observe things happening in the world without biases or prejudices. Prejudice, I'll explain what a prejudice. Prejudice basically means preconceived notions, preconceived ideas, preconceived. The idea is not even conceived, it's preconceived. It's like you conceive a child, preconceived ideas, preconceived notions, preconceived concepts all mean the same thing. Preconceived. You've already judged it. You just met a person, looking at somebody's face, you have preconceived his or her personality and their reactions and their capabilities and their abilities and their aptitude and their attitudes, something that you can't see through naked eyes, but you already preconceived. So it's called prejudice. Okay, bias is it's in our firmware. It's where we make a genuine mistake, a logic mistake which is written into our brain's software program, into our brain's logic, some error that already exists. So when we read about Socrates, he makes his entire philosophy is fundamentally dependent on that every human being should examine what they do, how they do, in order to figure out what are their biases. Why did they think what they thought? Why did they do what they did? Self-reflection, observing self to figure out your biases and also your prejudices. Okay? Prejudices could be easily identified. Biases may be a little difficult comparatively to identify. Okay. If that is called cognition, thinking, now conative or affective, as I mentioned yesterday, we'll get more in details of this when we are also studying attitude. Affective, behavioral and cognitive part of attitudes, component of attitudes. Okay? Conative, affective. Right now, please take it. This E, emotions. This is one thing that is really big here. Affective, emotional. Okay? So what happens is, this mind dictates, commands you what to see. So if there is something that is happening, it gives you a command how to perceive it. Let me give you an example. Here, I'll give you an example here. Let's say one person is beating this person and this person is trying to defend himself. And the second option is the opposite of this. Okay, I'll tell you how it happens. So for that, just before I give you more on this, let's go a little above and figure out what's happening. There is a very nice memory gadget, a memory trick which I figured out by combining a few letters. I think you'll be able to easily remember something called Fed P. Okay? What does it mean? This is E stands for the root emotions. I always told you, according to John Paul Ekman's. Emotion is root emotions. It could be universal biological root emotion or universal root emotion of contempt. 6 plus 1. Okay. In the beginning, it's a good idea if in your mind you can always, or in your revision, you can always draw this arrow, because it says, according to Paul Ekman, emotions will manifest themselves in feelings. Feelings, now what does it mean? Feelings, emotions in subjectivity, feelings triggered that manifest themselves through root emotions, desires and preferences. Okay? Desires and preferences. Now let's look at this. If I was to ask this person who's perceiving the world, and this is different kind of scenarios. If this person was to perceive this person beating the other person, and I asked him, as Professor Sangwan, I asked him, do you think this is right? How will he respond? He'll check out his desire, what he or she desires. If it is according to this person's desire, he or she will tell me, this is absolutely right. That is how they decide. Because this is happening as per their desire. Supposing the reverse was to happen, supposing this was happening here, and it was like this person is beating this person, this scenario. Now I ask the same person, is it right or wrong? If it is not as per his or her desire, then they'll say it is wrong. So it becomes something like this. It is right when you desire it. It depends on who is beating whom, and you say it is right. If it is the other way, you say it is wrong. See? You have similarly preferences. Let me give you an example. If an Indian is beating, let's say international scenario, an Asian is beating a European, that person may desire, great. After all, Asian is ours. Then within Asia, it is a Chinese beating an Indian. Suddenly the desire is different. He says, no, that is wrong. How can he do it? Now within India, somebody from, let's say this person is from north, and there is somebody could be from northeast, west, east, different part of the country. He'll say, no. It is right only if my person is beating, then it is fine. If the other person is beating my person, then it is wrong. You keep bringing that debate closer home. If it is his son beating somebody outside, it's right. Otherwise, it is wrong. That is the definition of right and wrong. It is subjective. It depends on what this person desires. My child should be top of the class. Desire. And other people should be behind. It's a desire. When somebody who's close to you is caught cheating, it's fine, he's a child. Somebody else's child is caught cheating, oh, we need to be strict. Somebody else's car gets fined, happy, rejoice. That root stem of happiness, rejoicing. Your own car gets fined, the whole system is bad. It changes as per desires. What is preference? Preference is just ranking of desires. I wish this is like number 1 desire, number 2 desire, number 3 desire. This person here will simply look at the action of beating. The action of beating. This person only sees violence. Did you observe? I have not drawn any people here. I just drew a hand and 2 hands like this. One hand is attacking, the other 2 hands are defending. This person sees violence, the action of violence, the action of abuse, the action of cheating, the action of stealing. Here, for this person, it is very important who is beating whom. Who is getting beaten? And the reactions could be emotion of happiness to emotion of disgust. This very same script, somebody is beating somebody, can trigger root emotion of happiness in this person. It could also trigger anger. It could trigger disgust. But what is important is it could also trigger happiness. The feeling could be rejoicing, amusement. As I was telling you yesterday, the feeling of the root emotion of happiness at higher end will be feeling of pride, awe, ecstasy, the ultimate expression of happiness. You're ecstatic. This person would be jumping with joy if his desired person is beating the other person. Because the mind is being told how to interpret, how to see. The very same thing could be right, could be wrong, depending on your desire and preferences. The example that I have just given, go through this segment 10 times until the truth of this you can internalize. Okay? This person sees violence and says it's wrong. It doesn't matter who is getting beaten. It doesn't matter who is beating, who is getting beaten, who is injured, it doesn't matter who is cheating, who is doing rash driving. It does not matter. What matters is the action. That is where we say objective. What we will do is, I'll just wrap up this lecture with one observation, one connection that I will draw, and then we'll take our discussion forward next time. Till the time, please try and understand at least till this stage. There are a lot of things that are going to, I have not explained, for example, what is this? I'll get more and more into details of this. All I want to tell you is now, and believe me, we are still on introduction of emotions and feelings. Okay. When you look at the foundational values of civil services, let me draw it differently. What are the foundational values? Objectivity, integrity, impartiality, non-partisanship and non-partisanship, dedication to public service, excellence and professionalism, compassion, empathy and compassion, transparency and accountability, and tolerance. O is for objectivity. They're looking for people like this, not for people like this. Selection, complete rejection. You should be able to look at facts, evidence, logic that is existing in the world. Neutral view, then your brain does cognition. So it has knowledge. You don't go by preferences, desires, feelings, emotions, and I'd written EA, emotional attitudes or affect. It's clear right here. So we've hit one of the first. So by covering this topic, we're also covering one of the foundational values of civil service. So let's stop our lecture here. I'll see you next time.